Hello, everyone. Today, I'll be exploring the profound political transformation that triggers sociocultural consequences, and I'll be applying this lens to Egypt during the 2011 uprising and the 2013 military coup, drawing on our lecture's core idea that political change leaves less visible but lasting cultural shifts. I'll show how Egypt's society and societal cultural needle moved through the years that followed not only the uprising but also the coup in 2013. Okay, so as we recall, the lecture emphasized that when political regime change happens, especially when democracy stumbles or authoritarian regimes reemerge, the visible shifts is only part of the story. Equally important are the lingering effects of the old regime, the regime that was in power before, and the struggle over culture, basically how people understand identity, popular culture, public spaces, gender, etc. So, in other words, politics matters for culture, and culture matters for politics. And in Egypt, especially, this was extremely important because there was a huge cultural shift from 2011 when Hosni Mubarak was ousted from his position, and with Morsi, an Islamist, a fundamentalist from the Ikhwan al-Muslimin party, taking power, and then from Sisi, who was basically the old regime coming back and taking over and bringing back the Western perspective and Western values back to Egyptian society. So Egypt went through a pendulum of shifting from one cultural norm to the other within a very short few years. In Egypt in 2011, when Mubarak regime essentially collapsed, we saw a cultural awakening. People from many social layers, youth, women, workers, poured into the public square, the Tahrir Square. Popular culture exploded. Street art and graffiti on Muhammad Mahmud Street, protest songs, satire, citizen journalists all became part of the revolt. There were Facebook posts. There was an Egyptian singer who became really famous because he came to the Tahrir Square and started singing with his guitar. He became an internet phenomenon overnight. Women's presence in public sphere increased dramatically. The movement recalibrated essentially what Egyptians felt possible in culture and everyday life. Egypt basically went through a giant cultural shift during that time. So let's zoom in on three cultural shifts. First, identity construction. During 2011, the notion of the Egyptian people expanded more. It was more inclusive temporarily. The gender and space aspect also changed. Women's bodily rights, their occupation of space became a flashpoint. Harassment in Tahrir Square, debates over citizenship. A lot of things changed in that aspect, and finally, cultural expression, graffiti and street art emerged as a site of struggle over meaning, memory of martyrs that were killed by the police, critics of power, and other important political symbols. These changes essentially signaled that culture was no longer passive, but it was actually mobilized. In 2013, the military intervened and ousted President Morsi, a turning point, as we discussed. With that political shift came a strong cultural backlash. The state regained control over culture, censorship, erasure of protest art, narrowing of public expression. They painted over a lot of graffitis. They banned Facebook posts. They banned a few people. They actually arrested a few Facebook um, people that were spearheading the Facebook movement during the time. Popular culture became more constrained. The struggle over meaning continued, but under heavier repression. society polarized more deeply between both the Islamist secular identities and also the loyalists and the loyalists to the revolution and the revolutionist to essentially order. So it was a huge divide between the Egyptians that thought that Egypt is a Islamic country and those that said Egypt is for everybody. And the symbol of that was when Christians and Muslims actually prayed in Tahrir Square. That was a huge cultural movement. So, what are the long-term socio-cultural impacts? So, one would be that society became more politicized. A lot of Egyptian uh, talk show hosts and activists became major celebrities in Egypt. Large segments of population expect public expression, protest, and voice. They were given an outlet to reach the world that was beyond their reach before. And the second thing was that deep division and mistrust emerged between different social groups, between state and citizens, between visions of Egypt. And the third was actually the norms of culture itself changed. The public space is now contested. Women's rights remain precarious, essentially, and culture remains both an outlet and a battleground between various ideas. There are the more hidden but powerful legacies of those years. So how do you say, the Islamists that were fundamentalists in their beliefs, they're still in Egypt and they still prevent their family members, like female family members, from protesting or joining any kind of movements. But those girls now have a voice. They have Facebook groups. They have different ways that they can reach the world, and they're not as secluded as they used to be. In conclusion, the lecture's argument that political transformation brings sociocultural consequences, but that the old regime leaves a lingering imprint, that culture is the domain of struggle, applies strongly to Egypt, especially Egypt of 2011 and 2013. The 2011 revolution opened up a cultural possibility, and with Facebook being popular, that was huge. And in 2013, the coup reasserted the old powers, but it changed the cultural terrain, essentially. Um, Egypt's society today reflects both hope and retrenchment. As we reflect on what comes next, how might culture basically go further in Egypt, and how that might actually cause another revolt, we don't know yet. But how can voices find space? Those are important questions to wonder. And a little segment towards the end, I want to add that if Facebook and other social media was not present during that time, I doubt that the 2011 revolt would have been successful, because people till then were essentially left to the mercy of the state, and the state had the ability to censor them in whichever way they wanted. But 2011, with all the things that were happening in the near countries such as Tunisia, it definitely gave the Egyptian people the possibility of reaching to the world and expressing their need for change. And that was the only reason the 2011 regime collapsed so quickly. It's because people were united in speaking out, and internet essentially gave them that ability, as well as political art and the graffiti. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I would love to get the feedback that you guys leave on the videos. Thank you.